Hello and welcome to our 9th Conversation to Connect. Let's get real, powered by Exceptional Connections. I'm CyndiONeill-Dady, the founder and chief connector of Exceptional Connections since 2009. At Exceptional Connections, we offer intentional and innovative solutions to boost your business. Each week, I nominate a different member of our Exceptional Connections community to have a meaningful conversation with. So be sure to make yourself comfortable with a cup of tea or a beverage of your choice, and get ready to take notes, add comments and questions in the chat box to engage with us during our conversation. So around the 45-minute or 1-hour mark, I'll unmute the lines and invite our listeners to ask questions, share their ahas, epiphanies, and enter into our thought-provoking conversation. So the inspiration of our weekly Conversations to Connect, Let's Get Real talks is to create purposeful conversations. So we desire to be relevant during these challenging and uncertain times, and to support our community to make an impact in the world and to stay connected. So our Conversation to Connect this week is with Chuck Oxford from Woodinville, Washington. His topic today is There's No Future in Your Past. So before I bring Chuck on with us, it's my pleasure to share with you some background about him and his journey. So Chuck Oxford is the founder of Charles Oxford Consulting. So as a small business consultant, he supports small business owners and their organizations to gain clarity on aligning and integrating best practices with performance. He supports his clients to turn their dreams into reality by connecting purpose and strengths to accelerate growth and market impact. Chuck brings 20 years of corporate management experience and 13 years of small business ownership to benefit his clients, challenging their current mindset to embrace change and think big. Chuck is passionate about supporting his clients to tap into their genius. We are honored to have Chuck share some thoughts from his upcoming book, There Is No Future in the Past. And Chuck is also a valued and trusted member of our Exceptional Connections leadership team. We just are so thankful to have him be part of our mentor connector and a former spotlight speaker. So without further ado, I want to turn things over to Chuck and welcome you to the call, Chuck.
Yeah, thank you for having me here. It's an honor to be here and to, share some thoughts and information that I've gathered over the last few years while in the process of writing my book, There's No Future in Your Past.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. So before we get going here, share with us a little bit about your inspiration for writing this book and, in the context of the times we live in right now.
Yeah, the inspiration for this book was a number of incidents that really happened back in our last recession of 07, 8, 9, 10, and how people really were clinging to their past as the world around them was basically coming apart on them. And they stuck to who they were, not who they were in the moment, in the present. So I think about this story that really inspired me. A friend of mine was a $250,000 a year salesperson. And during the recession, I believe it was in 09, he got laid off and was replaced by a younger man. He had been with the company 25 years and the younger man had been maybe 5 years. And they replaced him, and this gentleman made about $85,000 a year. And so my friend, of course, was in need of another job. So he went out and he was telling everybody, well, I'm a $250,000 a year salesperson with 25 years experience. And he was having a lot of difficulty finding a job because he was clinging to the past, and what was happening around him no longer existed. It only existed in the past. And he clung to this with gripped hands, so he would go out to interviews and say, I'm a $250,000 a year salesman with 25 years experience. But the problem was, the reality around him was, companies were hiring people in his same field of sales for 85,000, and they were bringing in people with less experience. So he just clung to that story for, I think he was unemployed for 3, 4, 5 years because he kept clinging to this story. And it was really a shame. And so it inspired me because I met other people doing similar things, clinging to what they were when the reality around them had changed. And they were not embracing the change around them.
Wow. Well, yes, your story beautifully illustrates how holding on to the past doesn't serve us, right? We need to be able to
Yeah.
adapt. So can you share with us just briefly, the context of the turbulent times we're in right now and how that's inspired you to really pull out your manuscript and take a look at, your thoughts that you've had in the past in the context of what's going on right now?
Yeah, as we know, these are turbulent times. We have lots of challenges around us, but at the same time, there are beneficial aspects and there are opportunities abound. So we have to be sure that we're not clinging to the past and missing the opportunities that are in front of our faces right now. So I view this pause in our everyday lives and our society creates a space where we can transform and elevate and inspire ourselves to move forward in the life that we really want instead of the one that currently exists. We can discover ourselves, we can disconnect ourselves from the past so we can be free to rethink the possibilities and of achievement, beyond what we're currently thinking and what are the current possibilities. So we need to connect with the opportunities for achieving personal growth, finding fulfillment in our lives, and increasing our self-esteem during these times that there's a lot of gloom and doom floating around. So I believe that difficult times have historically presented immense opportunities to reset ourselves and reconnect with our passion. I think, we hear these stories about famous people and writers from the past doing awesome sets of work while they've been in prison or they've been in wars or they've been in plagues. So I think that now we have an opportunity, a historic opportunity to really find out who we are and what we can really do. So the past is an important learning experience, but we must realize that we do not live there anymore. We live in the present and we're moving to the future. So do not sit idle and let your future go into somebody else's hands. Take control and be intentional.
Oh my goodness, that's beautiful. And that really sets the stage for our talk today. And to be able to move forward, we talked about the importance of accepting and letting go of the past. So share with us some illustrations that you and I talked about in terms of that concept.
Well, one of the things that I like to do is quote Maya Angelou. And I think these times are appropriate. I did then what I knew best. Now I know better, I do better.
So true.
And so now we have to, we have to come to grips that that we're in danger of dragging with us kind of the heavyweights, the boulders of the past. And we need to break those boulders down so we're not using all our energy and all our focus on dragging them around and slowing us down. Because we need all the energy we've got to face the future.
Yeah, that's a great reminder. For me, I have a visual of like a ball and chain, but the boulder is a great one.
Well, the boulder we can break down. You can hammer it apart and make it
Right.
little pieces so they don't hold us back.
Right. More manageable.
Yeah, we can step over them.
So what effects do limiting beliefs have on us as we're, letting go, accepting the past, dealing with it in order to move forward?
Well, I think that we need to embrace the concept that the past is gone. The past is simply reference material, like a library. It's a library of experience. And that it doesn't require any energy to exist. And we shouldn't spend any energy on the past because as I said, the future requires everything we've got. So the vision of our lives is often viewed, unfortunately, through the lens of the past, which is kind of like looking at a telescope from the wrong end, from the big end and looking through it. And it makes us think small. And we can't be thinking small, we got to think big, because the bigger we think, the bigger space we're going to fill in the future. And so often, because people do this, we frequently think smaller than our true destiny is in the future, because it can be as big as we want.
Right. So the more possibilities that are available, the bigger we think, right?
Yes.
And it
Or the more
reminds me of,
possibilities we think of, the bigger it is. Yeah.
okay, yes. And so I don't know, I have this visual here of Jurassic Park when they had the rear view mirror, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we don't want to be we don't want to be looking around. We don't want to be looking back. We don't want to be looking at the rear view mirror. We want to be looking forward and thinking big, like you said, in order to really be effective and be able to be present.
Yeah.
So share with us some stories about limiting beliefs. And you have an analogy with shadows that I think our listeners would love to hear about.
Yeah. Stories from the past and limiting beliefs, to me, I view them like shadows, shadows across the road that exist from your past. And they bring shade and darkness into our present thinking. So I look at it kind of like, like a completely open, clear blue sky is all the possibilities. But when you have a partly cloudy day, the clouds that you see, you can still see blue sky, but what happens is the clouds block part of the blue sky, just like stories and limiting beliefs in the past. So you don't see all the possibilities of that is the blue sky offers us. So I view the blue sky as just a clear path, and the clouds are just blocking it. The blue sky is still there,
right?
But our limiting beliefs keep us from seeing the complete blue sky.
That's a beautiful visual. I agree with you. And it reminds me of my landmark days when they say that which you resist persists. So, you don't want to resist that the clouds are there, but just know that the possibilities of the blue sky, like you say, are behind it. Right. Sometimes we get stuck just seeing the shadows, like you say, just seeing the clouds, and we forget what's behind that, right? We forget what's possible.
Yeah, because the clouds block our view of the sun, so we view it as a cloudy day when actually the sun is shining and there's a blue sky. Right. So our limiting beliefs do that. They blind us.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's a great analogy. I hadn't thought of that before, but I love that. So we've accepted our past. We're dealing with it, and it's critical, that, as you mentioned, to moving forward. So how can we reframe our story so that we can move forward?
Yeah, I think in reframing our story, I like to point out that often when we're dealing with the past and we're living in the present, we're living in our comfort zone, what's easy for us. But the saying I like is, a comfort zone is a beautiful place. It's a comforting place, but nothing grows there. There's no growth. There's no moving forward. Yes. There's no bigger you there. So I think to reframe our story, it's really important to cut the cord from the past. Let it go. No matter how painful the past might have been or how great it is, it's not there anymore. So you need to embrace a new beginning, a new path to the future. And it's time to let go of our limiting beliefs, and create a guiding light for ourselves to move from, move from where we are today to where we really want to be in the future, to have a better future than today, because that's what we all hope for.
Right. So where we want to be and who we want to be, right?
Yes. Now's the time.
Right.
Because what you got you here today is not likely going to get you where you need to go tomorrow, because the rules of the past won't be the rules of the future,
Right.
because the future is a total blank. It's not, it doesn't exist yet. You write the story, you know. So today in the present, especially with the coronavirus situation we're in today, I think it's a time where there's a shift that we can take advantage of if we just pause, that so that we can, this pause can allow us to transform and elevate and inspire ourselves to be better, and look to the future and say the future is whatever we make it.
Right.
So every day we change every day's experience. We're different than yesterday, we're different than last week in subtle ways. So every day we have the opportunity to become a better version of ourselves.
Yeah, no, that's really true. I love a quote by Nido Queben that you shared with me. I feel like it kind of sums up what you just said. So your present circumstances do not determine where you can go. They
Yeah.
merely determine where you start. So this serves as a perfect segue to our next paradigm shift on how to handle your present circumstances with resilience. So share with us more about that.
Yeah. So in difficult times, there's challenges as well as opportunities. So there's doom and gloom with some people, but there's silver linings with other people. So the way I look at it is, to be positive is today's troubles and issues are just a passage to the future, things we have to work through to get to the future. So it's not a place to stay or dwell in, because that provides limiting beliefs for ourselves.
Right.
So it's important to take time to mourn our losses at this time, but mourning our losses is not a sign of weakness as long as we don't stay there. But it's an important opportunity to reposition our mindsets for clarity of vision, see where we go, what we really want. It's a pause in our lives so that we can reflect and gain clarity. You know, have a little time out, maybe a little silence, a little pause, so that we can reposition ourselves to move forward. And realize that the current events and circumstances are really temporary, and not, that does not predestine or determine our future. There's no way, because we're going to write the future. It doesn't exist. So we're only going to carry forward the things that we drag from the past, things that, you know, we're just imagining these things because they don't really exist anymore. So I encourage people to embrace change. And when I say embrace change, I think I like them to think about, I need to change because, you know, I want a better life. I am able to change because there's no rules and there's no limits to the future. And that they believe that change will benefit you, because you can build a more fulfilling, higher quality, and more successful life with no rules and no dragging limiting beliefs to the future. So there's really is no win or lose in the present, just rethinking where you want to go and who you want to be. So just creating the momentum to build a pipeline to distribute our values and messages into the world around us. I think that's what we should be thinking of. How do we get that pipeline, that road, that path to the best vision of our future?
And really that
So,
requires being present, right? Staying where you're staying in the present moment and not looking back into the past and not dragging, like you say, you know, things into the future. I think that's important for us to remember, especially in
yeah,
these times.
yeah, exactly. So, because what we do in the present matters. It may not seem like it, but it does. Because if we take intentional action and plan today, it sets up the future for success, so that we're not a boat without a rudder and a compass, that we actually are intentional, and that we make the first step and we do move forward and into the future.
Right.
There's no other choice.
Before we move on, I want to just reflect on something that you said that I think is so important, that, not only is it okay to mourn or, like be still in the present moment, but also I think it's so important to be able to take stock of where we're at and the way that we can shift things, the possibilities that are available to us, especially in this time of shelter in place. And there's so many things that have changed, and if we don't change with it, we're going to get left behind,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. The
And
train's going to run you over.
that's something that's been very sobering for me, to just keep on moving, keep on swimming, as Dory said. So to summarize, the three paradigm shifts you shared so far is accepting your past, reframing your story, handle your present circumstances with resilience, and the importance in the midst of that of tending to your mindset to set you up for success. So we step into the future in a way that creates momentum, right? Positive momentum. And I remember a couple years ago, that was your word for the year, momentum. And
Yes,
we
exactly.
talked about, the power of having like the wind at your back, right? The power of being in action and being moving. So, whenever this season of COVID season ends, for those who are listening to this later, this is May 2020. We'll be ready. We'll be in motion at that time. So, talk to us about this next kind of piece of your paradigm that, as we're stepping into the future.
Yeah. The way I view the future is that the future is a blank slate. There's no rules, no negativity, no limits for success. It's as big as you want to make it. And I encourage people to think big. So I have a saying that I like to follow too with John Maxwell, who's a great teacher and mentor to people. You don't overcome challenges by making them small, but by making yourself bigger. And I think that's really important, because that's what I think people should do. Make sure you think of yourself bigger and bolder in the future. So when I think of blank slates, I think about, this will date me, but I think about the nice clean chalkboard, the green or the black chalkboard at school on Monday morning. That on Monday morning, the when you first arrive at school, at least in the old days, you would have a nice, all the chalkboards would be clean, not a mark on them. There's nothing on them. So you have a complete blank slate for the week, just like we do for the future. So, and that's kind of the way I view the future, because there's no rules and no limits except the ones that we drag from the past and the stories that we cling to. So I want people to really think about that. It's a blank slate. The road isn't built yet. The path isn't built.
Yes.
You need to be intentional and build that road for yourself. And don't wait for people. So
Preach it, Chuck. Preach it.
yeah, I believe in this. So
I know. I can tell.
past formulas won't likely get you to the future, because those worked in the past, but the future rules and formulas don't exist yet. So past formulas also won't drive you and fulfill your vision of where you want to be in the future and what your future wants to be, or what you want your future to be. So your present circumstances don't determine where your future lies. They only determine where you start, where you are in the present. Because again, reentering, the future is a blank slate. So I want people to really think hard about developing a plan of action to move you into the future. Create actionable goals.
Beautiful. So I love your simile of the future being like a blank slate. And again, we're both dating ourselves, because that's the visual I have as well, of the blackboard. Then later, when I was a teacher, it was a whiteboard, and now I guess it's a computer. But it's a beautiful visual to create a positive, kind of visual or scenario for the future. I love this quote by Seth Godin. Learn to embrace a blank slate. So that's, really supporting the visual you
Yeah.
just shared, right?
Yes, that's a good one.
So, so you mentioned the importance of developing a plan of action to move us into the future. So we're moving along here, and I love this because this is where the rubber meets the road, right?
Yes.
So this is where we're, tell us more about this plan for the future.
Yeah. Again, I like to, another quote by Malcolm Forbes, I think is so important in this topic, this particular shift. The biggest mistake people make is not trying to make a living at something they enjoy. Because, there's a statistic out there that at least a third of the people out there in their jobs are not engaged. They don't like them. They don't care about them. And that's a shame
It
because
is.
you're wasting all your talent and energy and your youth. So I suggest that people create a plan for the future. Do something, think through where is it you really want to be. So it's, to me, it's just like when we take a trip, you need to know where we're going and how to get there. So you got to plan out where you want to be. What is your view of the future? What would you really want to be? Because you can, there's no rules, so you can change everything. You write the script, you write your own movie. So, and I think intentional action, actually doing something and planning, dissipates fear and paralysis about moving to the future, and diminishes procrastination, because as we write it, as difficult as it might be, visioning the future, you, you once you see where the road may go, and you're intentional about going down the road and paving that road, then there's less fear because you know where you want to go. So, because without action, you cannot take advantage of opportunities that come up. Because if you take action and you're moving down the road, you're going to encounter opportunities. Standing still, the opportunities have to come to you, but if you're moving forward, you're going toward the opportunities. And opportunities are never lost, but if you don't get out there and take action, then someone else is going to bump into those opportunities and you're going to miss out because they're going to take them, because you won't be there to take them. So I'd say to discover also, what are you good at? Discover it. What are you really good at? Take the time to really assess yourself. What do you really like? What are you really good at? And that should provide you direction on where your future may lie. Find your passion and what excites you, what inspires you to take action, what makes you get out of bed in the morning, and put that with what your strengths are and what you're good at, and you'll start getting direction. Assess your skills, resources, and commitment to the future. And I really want to put emphasis on the commitment, because we can all write a nice story and tell a nice story, but are we truly committed to doing what it takes to achieve that dream you have of the future? So you need to develop a set of actionable goals, really big, hairy, audacious goals.
Mm-hmm.
They should scare you. If they don't scare you, they're not big enough,
Right.
because it won't inspire you to take action, and it will test your commitment. So I want people to also think about that life is a journey, it's not a target. So because when you get there, you have these goals, and if you achieve there, what you're going to find out is you've come to a new height, and you're going to look out and there's going to be new heights. It's like climbing paths in the mountains. You're going to get to the top of the mountain, you're going to see other mountains. So, and then you're going to see other mountains. So it's always a moving target. So you never get there. You're always navigating the future, because there's no destination. It's always a moving target. And so I suggest that when you're making your action, your intentional actions and your goals, that you focus on really making a difference in the world, just don't listen to other people's opinions because they'll likely make you mediocre. So you need to focus on making a difference and creating impact in the communities in the world around you for for yourself, because that's going to make you the best self you can be. So I want to leave it this part with, I think, the most critical question you should ask yourself. Am I really committed to do what it really takes to achieve success as I planned? Because that's the hard part. You've got to really be committed and have faith in yourself and believe in yourself.
Oh my goodness. So this reminds me of the story of the early Spanish explorers. I think it was Cortez who, as I remember in my history, Veracruz, Mexico, they landed, and he burned the ships, right?
Mm-hmm.
They burned the ships, and the sailors were like, "Wow, what are you doing?" So, thereby creating total commitment. So that's a little, that's a big, that's one end of the spectrum in terms of a commitment. But they were, basically in doing that, they're closing off options for retreating, going back, giving up.
Right.
So I love your illustration, because that's the strength of a commitment that you need to make to yourself, that we need to make to ourselves, right?
Yes, exactly.
It's like and there's different people that say that, like if they want to write a book or whatever, and I know I did that for myself as well when I was transitioning from being a homeschool mom to, my next career move. I cut the cord. I had to do that. And I found that it made all the difference for me. I mean, I had a plan B, but having making a commitment to your desired destination is so important. So I love that. Thank you for fleshing out that analogy and being able to really help us to see how important that was.
Well, I think too that it takes courage to be intentional about your future and what you're going
Yes,
to do and the action and goals. It takes courage.
it does. And so I think it's important for you to share, Chuck. You shared when we were talking about this, what happens if you don't, right?
Yeah. Well, let me say this. One piece of advice that I've picked up and learned the hard way in my life is, if you don't have the courage to build your dreams, someone will hire you to build their dreams with your skills, energies, and talent. And you give them everything you've got.
Right.
And they fulfill their dreams, and you're taking a back seat. You're diminishing yourself. And I've learned that the hard way during my lifetime.
Wow, that's a sobering thought, but it's one that can motivate and inspire us too, right?
Yeah,
To do
absolutely.
to be able to follow our heart and our heart's desire.
Mm-hmm.
So now that we have a plan or we've set a plan for the future, how can we face the future with confidence?
Well, I like to start this because you do need to be confident about the future. It's going to be here. It's going to be as great as you want it to be. So I like this quote from Steve Jobs from Apple. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' people's opinion drown out your own inner voice. And the important thing here is to have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. So don't diminish yourself.
Yes,
Be bold.
I love it. So true.
So I advise you, don't let others' opinions control you. And I think we're all guilty of this in some part of our life. People's opinions focus on where they are at, not where you are at, and where they think you should be, not where you need to be. So
Where you are, right?
or where you are, yes. So no one has the skills or capabilities or passions that you do. Again, collaborate with others manifests itself so you can show up or so people can show up to support your ideas and efforts. But it's collaboration,
Yes.
not giving away your soul. So you really, because studies show that you really need a team to scale your life and inspire you to do better, because the exchange of ideas is very powerful. So I suggest that you let go of your limiting beliefs that you've dragged along from the past. They are a distraction and are draining your energy. It's time to really claim your life. We're in this pause, historical pause in our country, in our lives, and in the world. So now's the time to really reflect and have that mind shift about yourself, because other people are have different opinions, different experiences doing this. So you just don't live your life by default. You know,
That's good.
believe in yourself. And so I encourage you to think big, be bold, and face the future with courage. Scary, big ideas open the way for innovation and success. Believe in yourself, because as of this talk, you can find your passion, and hopefully you'll develop an actionable plan with goals. The future begins with the first step, right? I mean, we got to just decide, I don't know exactly what's next, but I am going to step into the future, because the future will come. Tomorrow will come. This afternoon will come. Tonight will come. So, and things will never be perfect. So don't wait. If you're waiting for perfect, you're never going to do anything. So, don't focus on how. When you're in the present, don't focus on how. Focus about moving forward, taking action. Because what I found is that the how will develop as you go. You'll see it. It'll begin appearing in front of you, as long as you're moving forward. If you stand still, you'll never know how, because you're not taking any action. So you just need to take the first step down the road, because the path doesn't exist until you take the first step, and then the second step, and the third step. It doesn't exist.
What you're talking about is basically taking that leap of faith, right?
Yes,
So
exactly.
that next step, it's not really there until you take it, and then the path opens up. So I'm not sure if I'm going to get this right or not, but it's either Excalibur or Indiana Jones or one of those action adventure movies. I remember there's pivotal scene where Sean Connery or whoever the actor was is standing, and there's a chasm, and they have a map to where this treasure is, and the map shows that he's supposed to, like, there should be a bridge, but there's not a bridge, and there's no remnants of a bridge. But in faith, he takes that first step into the chasm. So our listeners may have seen this movie in the past. So I just love this, and it gives me a lot of inspiration, and has in the past, to take those leaps of faith, that step. So as he puts his foot down into the chasm, a paved step appears. And then he takes a second step, and the next paved step appears. And then as he's going across the chasm, his path is secure as he takes the next step. So I love that visual, and I love the picture that you've painted of, having faith in yourself and collaborating with others, and being able to let go of our limiting beliefs, let go of the past, let go of our story that we tell and we buy into and we hold on to so dearly. Being able to step into the future with promise and power and courage. And ultimately what we're doing is we're believing in ourselves, right?
Yes.
Believing in ourselves more than that, the fact that we have to carve a path. It's as we wrap up here, Chuck, your topic, I just love I've really enjoyed being able to hear more about your book, There's No Future in Your Past. I've really enjoyed your thoughts, and I know they're deep thoughts that you've been chewing on and mulling over for years, right? And that you're putting pen to paper. I love that we have the opportunity where we sit right now in history to do things differently, to make a difference, to learn from the past, to be able to, again, let go of our stories that are likely stories that have held us back, to be able to step into the future, with resilience, and really believe in ourselves. And, if we don't believe in ourselves, who is going to believe in us, right?
That's right.
And, I guess just in closing for me, just to, you said one thing that really got my attention, and it reminded me that I need to be, just really aware of that right now in this time in history, is whatever got me to where I'm at now isn't going to serve me going forward. So that's one of the motivations for me right now we just, for Exceptional Connections, created a YouTube channel, and we're doing these conversations to connect. And, I'm learning graphic design skills, and there's a lot of skills that during this time of sheltering in place that I'm acquiring that I'm confident are going to serve me going forward in the future.
Yeah, and I think that's right. That's right, exactly. So I that's why I think we have to be agile, and we have to be willing to adapt, because things are changing quickly around us, and they'll continue to change. One thing that we all know is change is constant, right? Everything's always changing, even if it doesn't appear to change. So this is why I like the reference to the library. The library is full of wonderful, wonderful things, lots of knowledge, lots of experiences, lots of stories. But it's a library. It's just a reference material, So we can't, those books are already written. So we have to have the courage to accept change and embrace it. So we have the courage to step forward, create new books, new ideas, new concepts, and follow our hearts. Where do we really want to go? And listen to our intuition and our instincts. And kind of rephrase an old phrase is go boldly where you've never gone before. Because that's where we're going. None of us have been in the future, at least to my knowledge. Maybe some people have. But
time
my knowledge, I don't know anybody who's been in the future. So we have the complete chance now to reframe what we do and what we think, and move into the future and develop a whole new ideas, whole new concepts, a whole new successful future for ourselves, much bigger than it is today.
Yes. Well, thank you, Chuck. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us, sharing your thoughts that I know that you've been really developing, and sharing them at such a time as this, in history. Very applicable, and really appreciate your taking the time to join us, being a part of our Exceptional Connections community, so our listeners can experience for themselves your wisdom and all that you bring to our community. We just really appreciate you more than I can ever express. So if anybody wants to learn more about you, what you have to offer, can you share that before we open it up to discussion with some of our listeners?
Well, yeah, they can reach me at my email address at Charles E. Oxford Consulting at CEO@charleseoxford.com. Or they can call me for 425-503-2929, and I will offer them, a 30-45-minute consultation on the issues that are at the top of mind today. I'd be glad to do that for anybody.
Beautiful. And then your website also is the Charles E. Oxford Consulting.com.
Yes.
So they can check out your website as well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. Again, thank you for being part of our Exceptional Connections community. We've been wanting to have you join us as a conversation to connect guest for quite a while, and so glad we were able to make that happen today. So let's open it up and see if anybody has any ahas or epiphanies or wants to enter into this conversation with us. Rakshana, I see you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I wanted to thank Chuck for this title. It was just beautiful. There is no future in the past. What a catching title. And I just want to share the lessons that really brought me some aha moment awareness is just, looking at the sky and looking at the clouds like this. There is always blue sky on the other side. And I need, sometimes we get all bloomed up. I'm like, oh, it's a rainy day living in Pacific Northwest. Oh, another gloomy day. But at the end, when you look at it, yes, there is blue skies beyond it. And whatever block that is, and to see what's ahead in the impossible. So thank you for helping us reframe the way of looking at things. I love the clean slate, the things that we don't know what's ahead, but to be able to still show up. So I took a lot of notes. I'm going to be reviewing, and lots of wisdom, lots of nuggets, lots of keys to create from.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a great idea, Rakshana. We'll have to create some of these into networking nuggets for Exceptional Connections to share with our community. So, well, thank you so much, Chuck, again, for being a part of our Conversations to Connect, Let's Get Real. And for those of you who are listening, we have a YouTube channel. So go to Exceptional Connections and subscribe and click on the notifications so you get the reminder for the next, when the next Conversation to Connect drops. And we look forward to having you join us every Wednesday from noon to 1, and with a new guest every month. Next month, we are honored, I think it's May 27th. Molly Clipp will be joining us. So signing off from Mill Creek, Washington. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
You're welcome. You too. Bye-bye.